So how active will the Atlanta Hawks be in free agency? You know, honestly, if you look at the number of contracts that the Hawks have, Young's under contract, Collins, Capella, Hunter, Bogey, Murray, Okongwu, AJ Griffin, Sadiq Bey, Jalen Johnson, Bruno Fernando. There really aren't any free agents that are on the Hawks roster right now. And they've moved on from some of their contracts, right? The Aaron Holidays and Frank Kaminsky's of the world, right? So I don't think that the Atlanta Hawks are going to be an active free agent team. I think what they are going to be, though, is an active trade team. Because when you don't have any roster spots, there's you're not going to sign any kind of high caliber free agents. And not only that, but we're already $9 million into the luxury tax. And again, this is the big question about what direction we're going to go. What direction are we going to be? Are we going to be a luxury tax team? Or are we not going to be a luxury tax team? I had Lauren Williams, the beat writer for the Hawks, on the show last night. She still does not think that we're going to be a luxury tax team. Now, one is I question the ability to get better if we're not going in the luxury tax. I don't understand how slashing payroll or cutting salaries makes you a better team. And when it comes to, we're less than a month away from the NBA draft. That player that's selected at 15, that player is going to the G League. That guy's going to go directly to the G League. Do not pass go and collect $200. That player is going right to the G League. Because at this point, there's so many young players on this roster. It's the opposite problem of what we had a few years ago, right? Where Nate McMillan didn't want to play any of the young guys, and they weren't getting any time, and they were stuck down in the G League, right? Now we've got too many young guys. Sadiq Bey is still a really young player. Forget about Trey and all these guys that are starters. Sadiq Bey is still a young player. Jalen Johnson's a young player. AJ Griffin is a young player. So the first thing is the draft pick is going right to the G League. He's going right down to College Park, and that's where his home is going to be because you're not going to find him any minutes. But I think while the Hawks are going to be active in the trade market, they will not be active in the free agent market. The only way that the Hawks are active in the free agent market is if they do some kind of package deal where it's a 2-for-1, 3-for-1. If they give up 2 or 3 assets to get somebody back in return, then that will open up a roster spot for the Hawks. That will open up a spot. But even then, I'm not convinced that they're going to spend a whole lot of money. They will be active in the trade market. They will be active as far as changing up the dynamic of this roster, but there's really not players to go out and add. There's really not spots on the roster to go out and start improving players, right? And not only that, but again, the money aspect of it. I mean, if we're not going to go waist deep in the luxury tax, not dip our toe, but we go waist deep in the luxury tax. And this is what will be fascinating is because if we see trades, and this happened at the All-Star break, right? At the trade deadline. One of the byproducts, yes, we did get Sadiq Bey and we got a couple pieces right at the trade deadline, but the Hawks also slashed payroll at the trade deadline. That was kind of the byproduct of what the Hawks did is that, yeah, they got a better player in Sadiq Bey and they improved their roster, but we also slashed payroll with Holiday and with Kaminsky. And so if the Hawks are going to get in the mix for trades, I don't think that they are going to trade just for the sake of trading, right? Like, so for instance, they're not going to just trade to acquire expiring contracts on this roster. I mean, that's what the teams that are rebuilding and reloading, that's what they do. You trade a good player and you get back junk on contracts, right? You get back Chris Humphreys or Jeremy Lin because they're on expiring contracts and you'll have money to be freed up for the next year, right? In the following season, the following summer, now you're going to have money to spend. Hawks are not in that mode right now. Hawks are trying to build a winner. Hawks are trying to get themselves advanced in the playoff picture. This is not, finding more salary for guys to spend money on. They've spent money on their guys. They've spent money on Capella and Collins and Hunter, right? And obviously Trae Young is a supermax guy. They've spent their money. Now, if they don't sign DeJounte Murray, now we've got a whole nother, can of worms that's going to be opened up. If they don't offer an extension to Murray, that will be a different scenario. And again, I want to see DeJounte Murray work through the summertime with Trae and all these guys and get their coaching and all this good stuff. I want to see all of that develop. But I will tell you, outside of Trae Young, I've said this before on the show, outside of Trae Young, there's nobody who's safe from being traded. Trae Young's the only guy that's not going to get traded in this whole scenario. Everybody else, including DeJounte Murray, including John Collins, Capella, Hunter, everybody else is fair game. And if you have to package one of those young guys together in a deal that gets you a really high caliber player, then they'll do that. But outside of Trae, who they really want to build around, and I think they still want to build around DeJounte Murray, Murray is probably the number 2 untouchable guy. But again, he's coming into the final year of his contract. If you get the right deal in place for Murray, you got to take advantage of it. So I don't think that the Hawks are going to have really, because of roster limitations and just the idea of adding more salary, I don't see that the Hawks are going to be any kind of player in free agency. We'll see a lot of these deals get done and Woj will drop bombs and, we'll have something late on a Sunday night, right? A random Sunday night in the NBA, and all of a sudden a Woj bomb hits and guys are signing, big time contracts. I think the Hawks will be really active in the trade market. I just don't think that they're going to be active at all in free agency. All right, once you make Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery your first listen, be sure to go in and leave us a comment that you're an everyday listener. So whatever platform that you're listening on, let us know that you're an everydayer, as we like to say, that you listen in 5 days a week to the show. We thank you greatly for being a part of our community, a little bit more than a year old now. So we thank you so much for all the growth and everything that's going on with the shows on the Lockdown Podcast Network. So we thank you, but let us know that you're an everyday listener, as we call them, our everydayers, that you listen in 5 days a week.